Coming to you from his studio in downtown San Francisco, this is the Backstage Bay Area podcast. And now, here's your host, Steve Roby.
Hey, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Roby, and this is Backstage Bay Area. Today's guest is saxophonist, composer, and producer Ben Wendell. He's one of modern jazz's most distinctive voices. Born in Vancouver, raised in Los Angeles, and now based in Brooklyn, Wendell has built a wide-ranging career as a bandleader, collaborator, and composer. Ben first came to prominence as a founding member of Kneebody and has since worked with artists including Bill Frisell, Terrence Blanchard, Gerald Clayton, and Taylor Eigsti. His upcoming appearance at Yoshi's in Oakland highlights the acoustic quartet side of his music, featuring a band that brings serious depth, chemistry, and improvisational range. Ben Wendell joins me now. Hey, Ben, welcome to Backstage Bay Area.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Hey, before we get into the music and the upcoming Yoshi's date, where am I reaching you today?
Currently dialing in from Brooklyn, actually, New York City. And catching you just before I head off to Europe for some work.
Wow. Okay. Well, we appreciate your time today and greetings from San Francisco.
Thank you.
Ben, as I mentioned, you were born in Vancouver, raised in Los Angeles, and have built a career that moves comfortably among composition and improvisation. When you look back, what first drew you to the saxophone, and when did jazz start to feel like your language?
I guess I was always drawn to music because I grew up in a musical household. My mom was a professional musician. She was an opera singer. So I grew up around a lot of that kind of activity. And in terms of the saxophone, I can't tell you. I was 10 years old. I was going to a public high school. They had a great music program. My teacher, Mr. Metler, he was one of those guys that could play all the instruments a little bit. And there was a day when he demonstrated all of them,
Wow.
one by one. And he got to the saxophone, and I just said, I want to play that thing. I was drawn to it. And then in high school, I was playing in orchestra, wind ensemble, big band, marching band, you name it. And I made friends with a fellow sax player named Terrence Martin, who's still a friend until today. And we kind of like started a band together just for fun, where we'd play on the 3rd Street Promenade, and we started playing tunes out of the Charlie Parker Omni book and the Fake book.
Yeah.
And it just kind of happened organically. That's kind of my roots, how I got into it.
Besides the high school band teacher, was there an album or a concert that you went to that kind of like you knew jazz was where you were going to be heading?
I think at first I didn't know that jazz was going to be the thing. I just knew that music was going to be the thing. I kind of didn't understand what it was, but I was drawn to it in that way.
Wow. So
later on, just the fact that I played the saxophone, in a way, it kind of predestined my path. I've always kind of remained open to a lot of different genres. Like, I just want to be in music, and I want to play amongst the best of the best. And that's why my path has taken me down a lot of different avenues, not just folks in the jazz world, but people like Snoop Dogg and Prince and on and on. So I think it's been like that. I think specifically, I feel very, very lucky to have ended up in the world of jazz, because I feel like it's the most let's say open. It's like a meta language. It's the most open language of any language within music, and it allows me to travel around the world and interact with many different kinds of cultures and many different musical backgrounds, and share experiences because of the language of that music.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of freedom in jazz that you won't find in other genres, I think.
Yeah, it allows you to, it just somehow, it allows you, it's like a universal translator. It allows you to step into a lot of different worlds, because I think that music itself is really the most complex, challenging improvisation kind of music in the world, in the history of music. So to get good at that music means that that it kind of gives you this skill to be able to jump into a lot of different kinds of fields.
Right. Well said. Well, let's talk about your writing now. It's become just as central to your identity as you're playing. When did you realize composing was going to be a major part of your voice?
I think I kind of realized it after the fact, I would say. I always loved to compose. It was just a beautiful kind of meditative space for me. I really enjoyed it, though I become part of my identity. And I just kept doing it. And then I realized later that it was actually part of the world I was building and part of a way to show sort of my personal take and vision of music in general. I remember someone saying once that composing is improvising in slow motion. And I love that idea. And in a way, I like that because it's basically saying that it's a way to express yourself instead of in that spontaneous real time way that I do with saxophone and playing with other people live. It's a way to express your thoughts in a more paced manner where you really can take your time and say, no, this is what I meant to say. Yeah. Over time, it's really, it's become something that I'm really, really happy has become part of my life and part of my output.
Speaking of live settings, one of the songs we're featuring on the show today is On the Trail. It's from the album Understory Live at the Village Vanguard, which captures a band that sounds alert, open, and deeply connected. What made On the Trail the right piece to document in that setting? And what does it reveal about how this group works together?
A lot of the time on my albums, I like to pick at least one song that I haven't written and then kind of arrange it through let's say the Wendel filter.
Okay.
And I feel like I do that because I think it's a chance for people that maybe might not be familiar with my playing to kind of understand my vision of what I like in music through a piece that they might have heard before and kind of hear it in a new context. So in the case of On the Trail, that's a piece that's probably been recorded 1,000 times in the jazz universe, and then specifically recorded quite a bit at the Village Vanguard. So that was me kind of giving a nod to the history of that sacred space, and also kind of trying to place myself on the continuum that is that music and the tradition of that music through that song.
Well, let's listen to it now. This is On the Trail by Ben Wendell here on Backstage Bay Area. just heard On the Trail from Ben Wendell's Understory, live at the Village Vanguard. Ben Wendell is my guest today on Backstage Bay Area. Ben, your current work, Barcode, seems to move between intimate acoustic settings and more groove-oriented, electronically informed projects. When you shift between those worlds, what changes for you?
I would say at this point, nothing.
Okay.
I would say, at this point, using effects pedals and all that kind of stuff, for me, it's just sort of like an expansion of what I already do. So I would say, in the multiverse, in a different universe, I probably would have become, among other things, a piano player. And so, for example, the desire to express harmony the way you can on a piano, you can't do that on saxophone unless you use effects. So effects are just like an extension of what I hear or what I would like to hear through my primary instrument, the saxophone. So I use it in a lot of different ways. It allows me to be a chameleon of sorts. At times I can be the bass player. I can be the piano player. I can create. I can expand the sonic sound of the space through delay. So it really gives me this kind of electroacoustic palette. So when I perform live, like when I'm going to perform at Yoshi's, very often I'll toggle between those areas. Some songs will be completely acoustic, and other times I'll use the effects. But it's for me, it's never either or. It's just part of who I am at this point, and part of the sort of sound I've developed.
You've had long musical relationships with players like Taylor Eigsti and Nate Wood, and that kind of history can change what happens on the bandstand. What becomes possible when playing with musicians who know your instincts so well?
I mean, yeah, anything becomes possible. It's such a beautiful thing to experience. That quartet that I'm bringing to the Bay Area, I oftenly joke, I call them the old friends quartet, because we have been friends for so long. We've shared so many concerts together all over the world, so many meals together, so many stories. When you are communicating like that, both on the stage and off the stage, you just start to build this lexicon of language, and and kind of almost like a library of memories that you share, and understanding that you don't have to talk about things.
Right.
You just kind of understand. There's a very high level of understanding with those musicians. There's a lot that doesn't need to be said, and there's a lot of sort of telepathic kind of instincts that happen at this point from all those years of layering experience together.
It's fun to watch that as an audience member, to see you guys communicate without saying a word. Or
yeah, and there's a sound to that too. What's so infinitely amazing about this music that we call jazz is like you can literally meet strangers and get to amazing heights musically with them through this shared language. But then there's also really a sound to a band that's been playing together a long time that also has a sound and a special kind of immediacy. That's kind of what people experience when they see that particular quartet.
Yeah, it's so fun. The second track we're spotlighting today is Wanderers. The song features a guest appearance by trumpeter Terrence Blanchard. What drew you to that piece, and what do you think listeners should listen for as it unfolds?
Well, this would be an example of kind of me branching out, a kind of a reflection of my upbringing. I also play the bassoon, and I always have been a huge admirer of classical music, of orchestral music. So that project, the track that you're going to hear, that comes from an album called All One that got a Grammy nomination a couple of years ago. And I had the wild idea of basically creating little mini orchestras using overdubbing, where I just would layer myself playing bassoon and sax over and over again. So I created like these little 20 to 30 piece orchestras. And then I would invite guests, Terrence Blanchard being absolutely one of my heroes. And when I asked him to join, I said, I gave him three choices. I said, I could write an original for you, I could arrange one of your songs, or do a standard. And he said, I have this piece called Wandering Wonder. Maybe you could take a look at that. And I looked at that piece of his, which he's recorded twice. And eventually what I came to, I said, I think I could do something that's inspired by this. And so that's why it's called Wanderers. And while people are listening, you could almost imagine that me and Terrence are the wanderers.
Yeah.
And we're wandering down that path, and eventually we find each other.
Nice. When we return, I'll ask Ben about the remarkable band joining him at Yoshi's and what Bay Area audiences can expect from the show. But now, let's listen to Wanderers here on Backstage Bay Area. We just heard Wanderers from the Ben Wendell album All One. Ben is my guest today. Ben, let's pivot to your upcoming show at Yoshi's in Oakland. You've got a remarkable band joining you for a set that leans toward the acoustic quartet side of your music. Who's on stage with you, and what makes this lineup right for that sound?
Well, these are some dear friends that I've played with for over 20 years. The great Nate Wood on drums, who's also a fellow bandmate of my group Kneebody. Harish Raghavan on bass, who's played with folks like Ambrose Akinmusiri and Charles Lloyd. And then the great Taylor Eigsti, also a Bay Area hero and prodigy, on piano. Yeah, so this is a quartet that's been working together a long time. And what can they expect to hear? Yeah, they're going to hear repertoire from my entire discography, including new stuff that I've been touring lately. And they're going to hear a band that's, well, it's like a very well-oiled machine at this point. We've done probably hundreds of gigs together all over the world, everywhere from Tokyo to Berlin. And it's a really special quartet, so I'm really happy to take them on the road.
All right. And Yoshi's is such a fun venue to visit, to listen to. The acoustics are perfect, and you just feel like you're right on stage with everybody. It's just it's a great place to listen to music.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, let me remind our listeners, the Ben Wendell Quartet will perform at Yoshi's in Oakland on Monday, April 20th. Doors open at 7 p.m., and the show starts at 7:30. For tickets and more information, visit yoshis.com. And for more on Ben Wendell and his music, visit benwendell.com. Both links will be included in the podcast show notes. Ben, thanks for the great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve. I really appreciate it.
All right, Backstage Bay Area. We'll be right back after these messages.
Are you a jazz musician preparing for a run in San Francisco? The Backstage Bay Area podcast wants to help tell your story. We are currently filling our guest lineup with the artists keeping the jazz scene alive. If you have dates booked at a local club or concert hall, let's get you on the mic to discuss your latest work. Connect with us directly. Send an email to backstage.sfbay@gmail.com. Just let us know when you'll be playing in San Francisco. That's backstage.sfbay@gmail.com.
Backstage Bay Area is dedicated to keeping jazz alive in the 415 by spotlighting the artists, presenters, and venues that sustain this music. The most meaningful way to support local jazz is simple. Show up, buy a ticket, and experience the music live. Visit BackstageBayArea.com and explore our upcoming concerts section, featuring both a weekly guide and a weekend guide to jazz shows across the region, plus the latest concert news. Thank you for keeping jazz alive in the 415.
You've been listening to the Backstage Bay Area podcast. Visit us on the web at BackstageBayArea.com. And don't forget to keep jazz alive in the 415.